The Frankfurt School, a psyop on the grandest scale you've never heard of. Ever wondered why we are where we are? Well, here's a no small reason. The 20th century's Frankfurt School. This will open your eyes. Now, my sources are from Dark Moon and musicinthefrankfurtschool.com. Also a BBC Radio 4 documentary on Pierre Boulez and John Cage, and also my own music A-level experiences under Ian Hooker, who later studied with Pierre Boulez for a sabbatical year in Paris. And also Georgi Lukács in Wikipedia. Let's begin by considering the corrosive work of the Frankfurt School, a group of German-American scholars, mostly Jewish, who developed highly provocative and original perspectives on contemporary society and culture, drawing on Hegel, Marx, Nietzsche, Freud, and Weber. Their idea of a cultural revolution was not particularly new. Joseph, Comte de Maistre, 1753 to 1821, who for 15 years had been a Freemason, had this to say: "Until now, nations were killed by conquest, that is, by invasion. But here an important question arises. Can a nation not die on its own soil without resettlement or invasion by allowing the flies of decomposition to corrupt to the very core those original and constituent principles which make it what it is?" 1922 meeting, Moscow. Then there was Willie Munsenberg, another revolutionary Jew whose proposed solution to the problems besetting society was to organize the intellectuals and use them to make Western civilization stink. Only then, after they have corrupted all its values and made life impossible, can we impose the dictatorship of the proletariat. It was, said Ralph de Toledano, the conservative author and co-founder of the National Review, a meeting more harmful to Western civilization than the Bolshevik Revolution itself. To undermine Western civilization, the Frankfurt School Jews called for the most negative and destructive criticism possible of every sphere of life, to destabilize society and bring it to its knees, to engineer collapse, to produce crisis and catastrophe. This became the aim of these maladjusted and mentally sick Jewish revolutionaries, masquerading as high-powered intellectuals. Their policies, they hoped, would spread like a virus, continuing the work of the Western Marxists by other means, as one of their members noted. To further the advance of their quiet cultural revolution, the Frankfurt School made the following 12 recommendations, all of them calculated to undermine the foundations of society and create the dystopia we now see all around us. The creation of racism, offences and hate speech laws. 2. Continual change to create confusion, e.g. in school curricula. 3. Masturbation propaganda in schools combined with the homosexualization of children and their corruption by exposing them to child porn in the classroom. 4. The systematic undermining of parental and teachers' authority. 5. Huge immigration to destroy national identity and foment future race wars. 6. The systematic promotion of excessive drinking and recreational drugs. 7. The systematic promotion of sexual deviance in society. 8. An unreliable legal system with bias against the victims of crime. 9. Dependency on state benefits. 10. Control and dumbing down of media. 6 Jewish companies now control 96% of the world's media. 11. Encouraging the breakdown of the family. 12. All-out attack on Christianity and the emptying of churches. In the Soviet Union, under Stalin and his communist Jews, the emptying of churches was accomplished by the simple expedient of burning the churches down, thousands of them. See here, for more details on the systematic destruction of Christian churches and the persecution of Russian Christians under the Jewish leaders of the Russian Revolution. See also extended endnote. Coincidentally, most of the 12 aims and objectives mentioned above were set out prominently in the pages of that alleged forgery, the Protocols of the Elders of Zion. The Jewish philosophers of the Frankfurt School, it seems, had been heavily influenced by the Protocols. They were clearly impressed by what they read there and decided to implement its recommendations in their own sinister agenda. One of the main ideas of the Frankfurt School was to exploit Freud's idea of pansexualism, the search for indiscriminate sexual pleasure, the promotion of unisex, the blurring of distinctions between the sexes, the overthrowing of traditional relationships between men and women, and finally, the undermining of heterosexuality at the expense of homosexuality, as for example in the idea of same-sex marriage and the adoption of children by homosexual couples. Willie Munsenberg summed up the Frankfurt School long-term operation thus: "We will make the West so corrupt that it stinks." According to Sean McMeekin's The Red Millionaire, a political biography of Willie Munsenberg, Munsenberg was the perpetrator of some of the most colossal lies of the modern age. He helped unleash a plague of moral blindness upon the world from which we still have not recovered. The Frankfurt School believed there were two types of revolution: political revolution and cultural revolution. They were more concerned with cultural revolution, the demolition of the established order from within. Modern forms of subjection are marked by mildness, they taught. So-called reforms were to be made so slowly and subtly that these changes for the worse were barely perceptible. The school saw the undermining of the social order as a long-term project. The systematic erosion of Christian moral values and the promotion of sexual perversion is known as cultural Marxism. Today, thanks to the efforts of organised Jewry, which controls 96% of the world's media, cultural Marxism has largely triumphed and Christianity lies in ruins. Already Karl Marx had written in the Communist Manifesto, 1848, about the radical notion of a community of women. In the German ideology in 1845, he had written disparagingly about the idea of the family as the basic unit of society. This was one of the basic tenets of the critical theory, the need to break down the family unit. All families were essentially evil, these thinkers believed, even happy families, so they had to be destroyed. It was better if children had no parents or did not know who their parents were, or if they were orphans of the state. It was better if romantic love between the sexes leading to stable long-term marriages were destroyed in favour of short-term, unstable, promiscuous relationships. After all, the former might lead to happiness for all concerned, and that was clearly impermissible. For the whole point of the Cultural Revolution was to create a culture of pessimism and to make life impossible for everyone. These neo-Freudian Marxist philosophers of the Frankfurt School were clearly out to create trouble, to drive a wedge between parent and child and sow division in the family. Whatever was good in human relationships simply had to be destroyed. If people didn't have problems, then problems would have to be manufactured to make life impossible. All this prepared the way for the warfare against masculine gender promoted by Marcuse under the guise of women's liberation and by the New Left movement in the 1960s. They proposed transforming our culture into a female-dominated one. The indoctrination of children through education. Bertrand Russell was to join the Frankfurt School in their efforts at mass social engineering. He spilled the beans in his 1951 book, The Impact of Science on Society. The social psychologists of the future will have a number of classes of school children on whom they will try different methods of producing an unshakable conviction that snow is black. Various results will soon be arrived at. First, that the influence of home is obstructive. Second, that not much can be done unless indoctrination begins before the age of 10. Third, that verses set to music and repeatedly intoned are very effective. Fourth, that the opinion that snow is white must be held to show a morbid taste for eccentricity. But I anticipate it is for future scientists to make these maxims precise and discover exactly how much it costs per head to make children believe that snow is black, and how much less it would cost to make them believe it is dark grey. When the technique has been perfected, every government that has been in charge of education for a generation will be able to control its subjects securely without the need of armies or policemen. This, then, is the secret agenda of organised Talmudic Sabbatean Jewry, as represented by the cultural Marxists of the Frankfurt School. The destruction of traditional values, the destruction of the moral order, the destruction of the family unit, the destruction of religion, the destruction of meaning and purpose, and finally, the destruction of happiness itself. These are the people who now rule over us. They are in control. They create new wars with the same rapidity the stage magician pulls rabbits from a hat. And they make sure that the people they rule over, their subject populations, are either demoralised debt slaves in insecure jobs or unemployed bums living on state benefits and a diet of junk food and sleazy junk entertainment laid on by the Jews. This is very Jew-centric, isn't it? It has to be said the Jews, the bulk of the Jews, exactly the opposite. But these are the elements sneaking into Jewry and have been allowed to sneak in too. Satan's secret agents have been only too successful in creating a new world order that bears a remarkable resemblance to hell. Russian-born Jewish writer Sonia Margolina goes so far as to call the Jewish role in supporting the Bolshevik regime the historic sin of the Jews. She points, for example, to the prominent role of Jews as commandants of Soviet Gulag concentration and labour camps, and the role of Jewish communists in the systematic destruction of Russian churches. Moreover, she goes on, the Jews of the entire world supported Soviet power and remained silent in the face of any criticism from the opposition. In light of this, Margolina offers a grim prediction. The exaggeratedly enthusiastic participation of Jewish Bolsheviks in the subjugation and destruction of Russia is a sin that will be avenged. I pray that we wake up, view the truth, and see the truth. And the truth is, just as the enemy infiltrated the Jews in the Old Testament and brought about a large part of their destruction, the same has been going on in the churches, the same has been going on in the Jewish people. It's largely external, and it's largely been a deliberate attack and undermining. And this is the burden of Solzhenitsyn's last work as well, that these self-same controlling Jews have banned its publication in English-speaking countries. Yep, so his last book, which talked about these two layers of Jews. And they are layers, and the top layer wants to actually exterminate the Semite Jews and do away with them. They regard them as their weaker brethren. Russian-born Jewish writer, I said all that.